recently I came across this article how Osama Bin Laden had written apparently not once but a couple letters to the American people, and now they're just looking into it, and so now a lot of people are looking into it, and actually there's been medias that actually took some of these articles down, and they're looking further into this article and investigating how true it is. So and I found it pretty interesting, and I was trying to get more information, but unfortunately that type of information was taken down by some of these media platforms. So I mean, it was like too bad that they took it down, because I was pretty interested in reading it. So yeah, but I was able to get a lot of good information, and I mean, just interested to hear what Osama Bin Laden had to say on his behalf. So let's get started. Good afternoon, good evening from the East Coast, and let's get started with this letter. So this is a letter from Osama Bin Laden to the American people. So the Saudi-born terrorist and founder of al-Qaeda has recently gained attention on social media. This letter, written in 2002, entitled Letter to America, was Bin Laden's attempt to explain reasoning behind the 9/11 attacks. In this letter, Bin Laden criticizes the U.S. for its involvement in the Middle East, particularly its support for Israel, which he blames for the suffering of Palestinians and Afghans. He argues that the establishment and continued existence of Israel is a major crime, and holds the U.S. responsible for it. He suggests that everyone who has contributed to this crime should pay a heavy price. Bin Laden justifies the killing of American civilians by stating that they fund the military actions that harm people in Afghanistan, Palestine, and Arabian Gulf through their taxes. He argues that this makes the American people complicit in the crimes committed by the U.S. and Israel. Bin Laden, who was the son of wealthy Saudi businessman, founded al-Qaeda in 1888 after the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan. Under his leadership, al-Qaeda carried out numerous deadly attacks worldwide, culminating in the 9/11 attacks on the U.S. that killed nearly 3,000 people and injured thousands more. Bin Laden was killed by the U.S. Navy SEALs in Pakistan in 2011. The letter, which was intended to garner support for Bin Laden and al-Qaeda, has resurfaced online and is being widely shared on TikTok. Some users have expressed shock and confusion after reading Bin Laden's criticism of the U.S. The Guardian, which initially published the letter, has since removed it from its website due to concerns about being shared without proper context. TikTok also banned content promoting the letter. So this is what some of the platforms that have removed the letter. So let's keep going. So the resurgence of the letter is believed to be linked to the current confusion surrounding the conflict in the Middle East, as well as the emotional reaction to recent events such as Hamas' attack on Israel and Israel's bombing of Gaza. Writer and labor activist Talia Jane has suggested on social media platform formerly known as Twitter that the recent attention given to Osama Bin Laden's letter to America is likely a reaction to the negative portrayal of pro-Palestinian protesters. Jane argues that the interest in re-examining figures like Bin Laden or Gaddafi does not indicate an intention to emulate them, but rather a response to feeling demonized and having one's voice criminalized. The letter itself contains elements that would not be accepted by many liberal Americans, including attacks on women and the LGBTQ+ community. It is important to note that this document was written in the intention of promoting propaganda by an international terrorist and mass murderer. The letter, written on November 24, 2002, begins with quotes from the Quran that give permission to fight against disbelievers. Bin Laden then poses two questions to Americans. Why are we fighting and opposing you? What are we calling you to? And what do we want you from? In response to the first question, Bin Laden states that they are fighting because they have been attacked and can continue to be attacked, particularly in Palestine. He accuses the U.S. and its allies of supporting military occupation of Palestine for over 80 years and blames them for the creation and continuation of Israel, which he views as one of the greatest crimes. He argues that everyone involved in this crime should pay a heavy price. Bin Laden also criticized the claim that Jews have a historical rights to Palestine, calling it a fallacious fabrication. He asserts that the people of Palestine are pure Arabs and the original Semites, and that Muslims are the inheritors of Moses, and that the unchanged Torah are the worthiest of Palestine. Bin Laden's letter suggests that when Muslims took control of Palestine from the Romans, it returned to Islam, the religion of all prophets. He argues that the Islamic community, which believes in all Allah's prophets without distinction, cannot be denied a historical right to Palestine. He instead insists that the suffering of Palestinians must be avenged, emphasizing that their pain is not endured alone. He accuses the US of attacking them in Somalia, supporting Russian atrocities in Chechnya, India, oppression in Kashmir, and Jewish aggression in Lebanon. Bin Laden claims that under US supervision, the governments of their countries acting as US agents, attacking them daily. He accuses these governments of preventing establishment of Islamic Sharia, suggesting them to humiliation and fear, stealing their wrath, and surrendering to the Jews by acknowledging Israel over the rights of their own people. He asserts that removing these governments is necessary to free the Islamic community, establish Sharia as the supreme law, regain Palestine, and that their fight against these governments is inseparable from their fight against the US. He accuses the US of stealing their wealth and oil due to its international influence and military threats, calling it the biggest theft in history. He claims that US forces occupy their countries, spread military bases, corrupt their lands, and besiege their sanctuaries to protect Jews' security and continue pillaging their treasures. He criticized the US for starving the Muslims of Iraq, where children die daily due to sanctions, expressing surprise at the lack of concerns of death of over 1.5 million Iraqi children, while the world mourns of death of 3,000 Americans. He accuses of US of supporting the Jewish claim that Jerusalem is their eternal capital and agreeing to move the US embassy there. He alleges that under US protection, the Israelis plan to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Sharon entered the mosque without protection of US weapons to desecrate it in preparation for its capture and destruction. Bin Laden's letter suggests that hardship they've experienced. He argues that this is why American people cannot be innocent of their crimes committed by the Americans and Jews against them. He states that Allah has given them permission and opinion to take revenge, so if they are attacked, they have the right to attack back. He suggests that they have the right to destroy the village and towns of those who have destroyed theirs, to destroy the economy of those who have stolen their wealth. Much better. And to kill civilians of those who have killed theirs. He criticizes American government and press for refusing to answer the questions of why they were attacked in New York and Washington. He suggests that if Sharon is considered a man of peace by Bush, then they too are men of peace. He states that America does not understand the language of manners and principles, so they are addressing it using the language it understands. In response to the second question of what they are calling Americans to and what they want from them, it states that the first thing they are calling them to is Islam. He describes Islam as the religion of unification of God, of freedom from associating partners of Him, of completing love of Him, of completing submission of His law, and of discarding all opinions, orders, and theories and religions that contradict the religion sent down to his Prophet Muhammad. He states that Islam is the religion of all prophets and makes no distinction between them. Bin Laden's letter invites you to embrace Islam, which he describes as a final religion in a series of divine relationships. He portrays Islam as a faith that emphasizes unity, sincerity, good manners, and righteousness, mercy, honor, purity, and pity. He presents it as a religion that promotes kindness, justice, and defense of oppressed. He also highlights the importance of enjoining good and forbidding evil, and the concept of jihad to ensure the supremacy of Allah's word. He asserts that Quran, the holy book of Islam, will remain preserved and unchanged, unlike other divine books. He mentioned that Allah has changed everyone to produce a book or even 10 verses like Quran. The second part of his call is for you to stop what he perceives as oppression, lies, immorality, and debauchery. He urges you to uphold manners, principles, honor, and purity, and to reject immoral acts such as fornication, homosexuality, intoxication, gambling, and usury. He criticizes you for separating religion from your policies and for promoting usury, which he claims has allowed Jews to control your enemy, media, and all aspects of your life. He accuses you of promoting the production, trading, and usage of intoxicants and drugs, and promoting acts of immorality under the guise of personal freedom. He mentions of scandals involving President Clinton in the Oval Office, suggesting that it is a significant event that we'll remember in history. He also criticizes you for promoting gambling in all its forms, which he claims results in active investment and the enrichment of criminals. Bin Laden's letter criticizes U.S. policies on weapons of mass destruction, claiming they only apply to countries that the U.S. does not allow possess such weapons. He suggests that countries like Israel, which the U.S. consents to, are allowed to keep and use these weapons for their security. He accuses the U.S. of taking military actions against any country suspected of manufacturing or possessing these weapons. He also criticizes the U.S. for not respecting international laws and resolutions while selectively pushing others who do the same. He accuses the U.S. of supporting Israel in its disregard for UN resolutions and rules for over 50 years. He mentions war crimes committed by the U.S. against Muslims and the rest of the world, including those in Japan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Lebanon, and Iraq. He refers to recent events in Afghanistan, where he claims innocent civilian villages were destroyed, mosques were bombed, and over 1,000 prisoners were killed through suffocation and thirst. He criticizes the U.S. for claiming to be vanguards of human rights while implementing harsh methods against Muslims and Arabs in America after the Mujahideen attacks. He mentioned the thousands of Muslims and Arabs taken into custody in America without reason, court trials, or even disclosing their names, and the issuance of newer, harsher laws. He refers to the situation of Guantanamo as a historical embarrassment to America and its values, questioning the value of U.S. agreements or treaties. Bin Laden's letter changes you to honestly evaluate yourself, suggesting that you may have find yourselves to be a nation lacking principle of matters. He accuses you of demanding values and principles from others that you do not adhere to yourself. Wow. He advises you to stop supporting Israel and your support for India in Kashmir. Stop backing Russia against Chechens and cease your support for the Manila government against Muslims in southern Philippines. He urges you to leave their islands, warning that if you do not, they may be forced to send you back to coffins. He calls you to stop supporting what he perceives as corrupt leaders in their countries, to refrain from interfering their policies and education systems. He warns that if you do not leave them alone, you should expect them in New York and Washington. He invites you to interact with them based on mutual interest and benefits, rather than policies of subjugation, theft, and occupation. He advises you to stop supporting the Jews, warning that continuing to do so will result in more disasters for you. If you fail to meet these conditions, he warns you to prepare for a fight with the Islamic nation, which he describes as a monotheistic nation that trusts and fears only Allah. He quotes verses from the Quran that command believers to fight against those who fear them, promising that Allah will punish them, give believers victory over them, and heal the hearts of believers. He describes the Islamic nation as a nation of honor, respect, quoting a verse from the Quran that attributes honor, power, and glory to Allah, His messenger Muhammad, and the believers. Bin Laden's letter quotes verses from the Quran, encouraging believers not to be weak or sad, promising them superior in victory. He describes their nation as one that values martyrdom more than itself, citing Quranic verses that portray those killing in the way of Allah as a life and providing for their Lord. He presents their nation as one victory and success, as promised by Allah in the Quran. He states that Allah has sent him his messenger Muhammad with guidance and the religion of truth, Islam, to make it victorious over all other religion. He accuses you of arrogance and haughtiness, which he claims the Islamic nation despises. He warns that if you refuse to listen to their advice and goodness, guidance and righteousness they call to you, you will lose the crusade initiated by Bush. He suggests that your fate will be similar to the Soviets who fled from Afghanistan, dealing with military defeat, political breakup, ideological downfall, and economic bankruptcy. He concludes his message by asking if now understand why they fought you and over which form of ignorance they will be victory by permission of Allah. Bin Laden's appeal to Americans for climate change mobilization. Osama Bin Laden in a letter urged the American people to assist President Barack Obama in combating the disastrous effects to climate change and preserving humanity. This is the latest proof of his concern about environmental issues, as shown in recent disclosure documents. These documents were among the materials confiscated during the U.S. raid of Bin Laden's hideout in Pakistan on May 2, 2011, which resulted in the death of al-Qaeda's leader. These documents were made public by the Osama administration on Tuesday. The undated and unassigned letter to the American people, which U.S. intelligence officials believe was written by Bin Laden, seems to have been composed shortly after Obama began his first term in 2009. Based on the events mentioned in the letter, Bin Laden's concern about climate change was also evident in the first batch of documents from the raid that were declassified on May 2015, as well as in an audio recording released via the Al Jazeera network on January 2010. In the extensive letter revealed on Tuesday, Bin Laden attributed the 2007-8 U.S. financial crisis to the corporate control of capital and corporate lobbyists in the U.S. led wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He urged Americans to initiate a significant revolution of freedom to free the U.S. President from these influences. This would allow Obama to make a logical decision to protect humanity from the harmful gases that jeopardize its future, Bin Laden added. In another letter, Bin Laden encouraged a close aide to start a media campaign for the 10th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 attacks that included a plea for reducing greenhouse gas emission. Bin Laden argued that the world would be in a better position if it would fund climate change instead of what he perceived as a war against Islam. The world should focus its efforts on trying to reduce the emission of gases, said the undated, unsigned letter of someone identified as Shaikh Mahmoud, which U.S. intelligence officials believed was written by Bin Laden. This is a battle between two of the largest cultures on earth, and it is under the shadows of disastrous climate conditions. All right, so what do you think? Give your thoughts, opinions on what do you think about this. Apparently, this is just some of what Bin Laden had to say. Give your thoughts, opinions, and thank you all for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.